Maybe I'm amazed that it's taken us 50 years to finally get this, but here we are, the full release, the full official release of One Hand Clapping from Paul McCartney and Wings, the live album, the legendary live album from 1974 that went unreleased. So what we're going to do here today, we're going to have a look at this copy I own, take a look at what's inside. We'll then do a little bit on the background of the album, and then I will do a track-by-track review. I'll pre-warn you now, there's a lot to say on this album because it's a long album. So yeah, this is probably going to be a long video. So apologies, get yourselves comfy if you're going to watch all this. Anyway, let's start here with the artwork. It's terrible. I mean, Paul, what is this?
What's this? Why are they... What's that in a grown man's bedroom?
It's maybe just me, but I think this is quite creepy. A baby with wings wearing headphones. Yeah, it's not great, is it? The artwork's great. I mean, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. You shouldn't judge an album by its cover, especially this one, because the contents of this album is very, very good. But the artwork just terribly lets it down. Anyway, let's have a quick look at what we can find within. So, this is from Paul's official store. We have the records, so this is the sleeves they're in. They're just on black vinyl. That's the label, if you can see it. Hope that's coming through okay. It's probably upside down, but it's nothing special. That's the other one as well. Same thing here. It's just green sleeve with a wing on it. Same with the label. And because this is Paul's official store, it also means you get this, the exclusive EP, recorded in the backyard of Abbey Road Studios. It's quite interesting this, because when this was announced and we were told we were getting an exclusive EP as part of, if you ordered it from Paul's official store, I thought what that meant would be the vinyl EP was exclusive to the store, but the audio would still get released on like streaming and stuff. But it hasn't. If you want to hear these 6 songs, this is literally the only place you can hear it. You can't hear it on any streaming service, which is a shame, to be honest, because, you know, if I'm out and about with my headphones in, or I'm driving my car and I want to listen to One Hand Clapping, I'm missing out on 6 songs. So maybe one day they'll get added to streaming, but I just think it's a bit daft how they haven't done that. Anyway, we will talk about this EP and the 6 tracks on it in the track-by-track review later in the video. And the final thing you get in here is the poster. If I can get it open. There you go. It's got the little baby angel with the wings. If you want to put that creepy poster up, well, you can. I mean, why would you not want that? Put it above your bed, it'll stop you from sleeping. The other side, we have a sort of introduction, pictures of the band with individual interviews, and then we have I think that's sort of a rewrite, a 2024 sort of writing about the album. That makes more sense in my head. I hope you know what I mean. Anyway, the other side on here, this is from the, I'm assuming what would have been on the album had it come out in 1975. I'll read you it now actually, because it's quite interesting. One Hand Clapping is a video documentary directed by David Litchfield concerning 5 musicians working in a recording studio. The 5 musicians were Paul McCartney, Linda McCartney, Denny Laine, Jimmy McCulloch, Jeff Britton, and they form a rock and roll band called Wings. Also in the studio were 2 other musicians, an orchestra and a dog. One of the musicians was called Howie Casey, and he played the saxophone. The other was called Dal Newman, and he conducted the orchestra. The dog was called Poppy, and didn't really do very much at all. The studio was 3 Abbey Road, London, where the Beatles recorded their first album, Please Please Me, in 1963, and the studio hasn't been painted since then. Jeff Emmerich, the recording engineer, said it would ruin the acoustics. It then has that same thing printed in what looks to be French and German for some reason. I won't read you the interviews from the band, because otherwise this video will end up a hell of a lot longer than it already is. Then we have the personnel. It's interesting stuff. It doesn't tell you who's playing what on every track. It just tells you what each band member plays on the album overall. Interestingly, Paul is the only one credited with bass, which, you know, we expect Paul as a bassist to be the primary bassist on here. But on tracks like Maybe I'm Amazed and My Love and stuff like that, where Paul's on the piano or the keys or whatever he's playing, there's no bass apparently, despite the fact you can hear bass. But neither Denny or Jimmy are credited with playing bass, so anyway. This release has also been dedicated to Denny Lane, Linda McCartney, Jamie McCulloch and Jeff Emerick. It's interesting on the dedications how Denny is listed before Linda. You'd think Paul would want to list Linda first. Anyway, this album, it was recorded at Abbey Road from the 24th to the 28th of August and then the 30th of August 1974. This remaster was done, it was mixed by Steve Orchard at Hog Hill Mill in 2024. Giles Martin has also done a Dolby Atmos mix, which you can hear on streaming services like Apple Music. I've heard the Atmos mix. It's beautiful. It's brilliant. Play it loud. It sounds really good. Giles Martin has done a very good job of the Atmos mix of this album. The only other thing I'm going to say here, the Beatles tracks that appear on this album are credited in the writing credits here, McCartney, Lennon. So there we go. There's Paul rewriting history a little bit again. I'm sure Yoko probably is not bothered anymore. She doesn't seem that well these days, Yoko, so she's probably not going to pay that much attention to this, but once upon a day, that would really have irritated her. Anyway, going to put that on there so you can see the creepy baby looking sort of at me. I've got all this to talk about. So yes, this is going to be quite a long video, I would imagine. So One Hand Clapping, this album has been on bootleg for many, many years. And I'm going to hold my hands up here and say I'm a huge Paul McCartney fan, I'm a huge Beatles fan. I have never heard the bootleg of One Hand Clapping. All I have ever heard of One Hand Clapping is the stuff that's been officially released on the archive editions. Otherwise, not heard a thing. And I don't know why. I mean, I could easily have found the bootlegs, but in some ways now I'm kind of glad that I haven't, because when I've got to hear this official release, I've got to hear this for the first time with most of the stuff on here. And yeah, it's brilliant. MPL these days, they seem to be getting a bit more generous. Obviously, earlier this year we had the Band on the Run underdub mixes. I'm aware I've done a few videos on that where I've pretty much said it's a disappointing release. I stand by that. I still think what they did for the 50th anniversary of Band on the Run was pretty poor, to be honest. I think the album should have been a full-on box set, should have been a remix. It should have had outtakes, it should have had the demos. The underdub mixes could have been included as part of this box set, but the underdub mixes as a standalone thing, not very interesting. They also a few years ago gave us the Wings Over Europe live album as part of the Wings 1971 to 1973 box set. Interestingly, still, even though that's 5-6 years ago, that's not had a standalone release, that live album. You'd think they would hurry up and do that, but there we go. Anyway, now they've given us at long last One Hand Clapping in full, the full album, which is very nice. It makes me a little hopeful that maybe we're finally going to get an official release of the Wings Last Flight in Glasgow 1979 gig. Maybe we'll have to wait till 2029 for that, but we will see. Please, MPL, please. Anyway, what else was I going to say about MPL and their releases? I can't remember. It might come back to me. Anyway, like I say, this was recorded 50 years ago in 1974, August 1974 at Abbey Road Studios. It's not been released though in full until yesterday at the time of recording this. All my travels seem so far away. June 14th, 2024. In terms of the full album, like I say, certain tracks here and there have been released, predominantly on archive editions. We'll go over the ones when I do the track by track review that has been previously released. The film as well, because obviously they were filmmaking this, that was released eventually in 2010 as part of the archive edition for Band on the Run. It's not been re-released with this. The film as well, it must be, I have seen the film, it must be an edit, because they were obviously filmed all 4 days, so there must be film of all the recordings for all 32 tracks on this, but it was an edited down version. And I should say the tracks that are in the film are predominantly the ones that are on the first disc of the vinyl. There's a couple off the second disc, but it's mainly the first disc. But yeah, like I say, it's not been re-released along with this, the film. I think part of the reason is the quality of it is really poor. It's to do with the camera and the film that was used when they made it. For some reason, they used really poor film, which is an absolute nightmare for them to remaster. On Paul's official YouTube channel, you can find the Soily music video from One Hand Clapping. That's just been re-released. It's been remastered in 4K, and you wouldn't really think it looking at it, because compare the quality of that Soily remastered video with anything from like the Bruce McMoose concert film from '72. It's night and day difference, really. I mean, yeah, it's a shame. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe one day we'll get it properly released in full, but we'll see. Anyway, so yes, what Wings were doing here, like I say, they were being filmed for a rockumentary. They were also doing an intended live album. That's what this was supposed to be, but it went unreleased. I don't know why. You know, there's a lot of bands over the years that have recorded live albums and are not bothered to release them because they haven't been happy with them. The one that springs to mind is Rock and Roll Circus from the Rolling Stones. That was never released in 1968 because the Stones, they weren't happy with their performance. They felt their performance was poor and they'd been upstaged by The Who. So I could understand why that went unreleased at the time. But I can't with this one because this is not a poor performance. This is Wings firing on all cylinders. This is a bloody good live album. The best live album that Wings has ever put out. And I know that's controversial because Wings over America is often seen as one of the greatest live albums of all time, but this is a better album, in my honest opinion. It's Paul McCartney. It's the best live album we've had from Paul McCartney. We'll include all his solo stuff as well. In fact, it's probably better than any Beatles live album, although we've only really had the Hollywood Bowl live album. But in terms of why it didn't come out at the time, it's never really been spoken about. Part of me wonders, is it because, obviously, Band on the Run was not long been out when they recorded this. It was on its 7th week at #1 on the charts when they recorded this album. And a lot of the tracks on here are Band on the Run tracks, but there is some earlier Wings stuff as well. And obviously Band on the Run at the time, in some ways, kind of saved Paul's career because a lot of people had written him off. It was Band on the Run that was kind of at the time seen as a comeback. Unfortunately, because a lot of his earlier stuff is bloody good stuff. And I wonder if, because there's a lot of earlier stuff on here, if Paul's thought, I don't really want to put that out and risk damaging my image that's now been repaired thanks to Band on the Run. I don't know if that's maybe played a part. It's maybe me just tinfoil hat territory here. But, you know, the other way looking at that, if that was the reason, was it could have made people reevaluate those albums and realise how great they are. Anyway. Yes, in the ensuing decades after this was recorded, obviously fans have been clamouring for it to be released. It's been on bootleg and everything for many, many years. But yeah, it wouldn't be until here, the 50th anniversary, the 50th year of One Hand Clapping, where we finally get it released in full. What else have I got to say here? So by this point, Wings was now back up to full strength. Obviously, with Band on the Run, they had to record it as a three-piece, Paul, Linda and Denny Lane. But now they are joined by Jimmy McCulloch and Jeff Britton. Jimmy, brilliant guitarist. Jeff, also a great drummer. Unfortunately, though, he wouldn't last long with Wings because he didn't get on. He didn't sort of gel with the rest of the band. Just his personality didn't fit. He clashed with Paul and Linda, I think. I think he also really didn't get on with Jimmy McCulloch. So, yeah, he had to go, basically. So this is the only full album that we get with Jeff playing drums. Obviously, he's on some of the tracks on Venus and Mars. But yeah, this is the only one that's a full album that we have him. And the only live performance he would ever do with Wings. So, yeah, that's a bit of a shame. In terms of the tracks on here, like I said, it's predominantly tracks off Band on the Run, plus tracks from other Wings albums and non-album singles. I think there's one Paul McCartney solo track, and there's a couple of Beatles tracks. This is the first time that Paul touched any of the Beatles tracks live post-Beatles. Although it's technically, there's a couple in the James Paul McCartney film documentary thing. But in terms of an actual proper live performance, this was the first time where he was intentionally touching them. Although I use that term loosely because a lot of it's half-arsed stuff. But we'll come on to that. What else have I got to say? I think that's all I've got to say, actually. So we're going to dive right into the track-by-track review here. So we open with the title track, One Hand Clapping. Basically, yes, this was intended to be the title song for the film. It's an instrumental. It was previously unreleased, this track, so this is the first time it's been officially released. It's got a nice little groove to it. I like the way that at the start of it, Wings are sort of clapping. I think each member of the band is probably doing their own individual clap. They get their little clap solo each. At the end of it as well, there's some quite funny, silly voices. Yeah, in terms of this track, Wings, you know, they've got a nice little groove going with this one. They're hitting the ground running, basically, straight away with this track. This track, it just sets the tone perfectly. They're firing on all cylinders, ready to go. Yeah, I mean, there's not all that much to say about it, really, because it's an instrumental. But yeah, it's a nice little instrumental. Got to say the name, one hand clapping. What does that even mean? Even Paul has said he doesn't know what it means, because how do you clap with one hand? Is it? But then I'm clapping on there, aren't I? So I don't know. Overthinking the whole thing. Track 2, Jet. Obviously, Jet is from Band on the Run. This performance was previously released on the Band on the Run Archive Edition in 2010. I should say, however, because these have sort of been remixed, remastered and stuff, these versions of the song of all the tracks sound a lot better than anything that's been previously released. So if you want to listen to one hand clapping any of the tracks, this is the place to come. Don't bother with the versions on the archive editions because they don't sound as good as on here. This is where it's at now. Anyway, Jet, yes, this is a proper rocking version. This is in-your-face rock and roll. Play this song loud. It's brilliant, it really is. I love this performance. Jimmy and Jeff have come in the band and they are just diving right in it. They are all firing on full cylinders. They are such a tight band. The performance on here, it's not all that different, this live version, to the version that is on Wings Over America, except I don't think there's brass on this version. I think instead it's all coming from a keyboard by the sounds of it, which is interesting when there was an orchestra present at the one hand clapping sessions and Howie Casey was there, so there could have been brass, but for some reason there isn't on here. However, I love this performance of Jet, and personally, this is going to be a common thing I say throughout this video, so get used to it. It's maybe going to be a controversial opinion. But personally, I think this is a better performance than the version on the Band on the Run album, the studio recording. If I want to listen to Jet now, I think this is where I'll come to listen to it, because it just hits harder. I don't know what it is about it, but I don't know if it's to do with the mixing at the time, what was to do, you know, like the in style of mixing in the 1970s. But there's just something about on this album, it just goes harder. I love it. You know, that's one of the reasons why I think Band on the Run needs a remix, just to turn things up a bit, to make it more in-your-face rock and roll. But anyway, yeah, Jet, brilliant song, love it. I love this version. Right, up next we've got Soily. Soily's a really interesting song because it's only ever been a live recording, Soily. There are no studio recordings of it. But it is on the Wings Over America album. It was the encore on that. It's also on the Wings Over Europe live album. So Wings played it live a hell of a lot, but they just never recorded it. It was one of them songs where if you went to the concert, it was like a song they exclusively played live, but they never recorded it in the studio. So yeah, there are no official studio recordings of this. Anyway, in terms of this performance of Soily, it has been previously released. For some reason, it was put on the 2014 Venus and Mars Archive Edition. Don't know why they picked this song. But like Jet, this is just more in-your-face rock and roll. Play it loud, it's really good stuff. Although I've got to say, Soily, it's never been one of my favourite songs, but this is still, it's a damn good performance. Wings are going very hard on this one. The bass, the guitars, the drums, the vocals, everything about this performance, it is brilliant. This is what being in a band is all about. If I was in a band rehearsing for a tour or whatever, or a gig, I'd probably play Soily. I think it would be a pretty useful song for something like that, personally. Anyway, next up, track 4, we have a medley of 2 songs, Sea Moon and Little Woman Love. So, Sea Moon was originally, it was a double A-side released in 1972 with Hi Hi Hi, and Little Woman Love was the B-side to Mary Had a Little Lamb. Interestingly, Mary Had a Little Lamb is not included on One Hand Clapping, even though I think it's an alright song, but I know a lot of people will disagree with that. Anyway, this version, this performance, it's never been officially released. I think this version is in the concert film, but the audio on its own has never been officially released. Yeah, it's a nice performance, this. The reggae vibe of Sea Moon, it's perfectly captured. Sea Moon, it's a really underrated tune. It's a nice little reggae number. Yeah, it's captured perfectly here. Paul's voice is lovely on this, as are the harmonies. And the transition into Little Woman Love, it is perfect. You know, because Sea Moon and Little Woman Love, they're kind of different songs. They're quite different. You know, Sea Moon, reggae. Little Woman Love, kind of Lady Madonna style rock and roll. And yet they managed to transition perfectly. Unfortunately, however, the performance of Little Woman Love, it's not really that long a performance. Paul is proper rocking it throughout the performance, but it's only about 50 seconds long. The vast amount of this performance is Sea Moon, which is a shame because I think Little Woman Love is the more interesting song of the two. But there we go. Track 5, Maybe I'm Amazed. This was obviously released on 1970s McCartney album, Paul's debut solo album. This performance, it was previously released on 2011's McCartney Archive Edition. I love this version of the song. It's brilliant. I love the way at the start Paul was kind of playing it more on the keyboard compared to the piano. It kind of makes it sound a little bit like a lullaby at the start, which is really cool. Paul's voice, as you would expect on this song at this point in his career, it is brilliant. Yeah, he's singing his heart out in places. Jimmy McCulloch is playing the guitar solo masterfully. He just aces the guitar solo here. You know, at the end of the day, Jimmy at this point would be what, 20, 21? Compared to the rest of the band who are all in their 30s, you know, plus Paul is one of the Beatles. Here's Jimmy having to come in and he's just like picked up the guitar and he'd be like, right, Paul, I'll show you who it's done. That sort of thing. Probably a terrible impression of the Scots there, but there we go. Anyway, I've got to say, this version on here, this version of One Hand Clapping, it sounds, the One Hand Clapping version of Maybe I'm Amazed, it sounds so much better than the 2011 release of this, because, especially through headphones, if you're on streaming, the Dolby Atmos mix of this, it just really sounds so crystal clear, and it's just proper loud and in your face. I love it. I'm probably going to make myself deaf how loud I listen to some of this, but hey, I had a good run if I do end up like that. I won't be saying that at the time. I've got to say, I actually prefer this version of Maybe I'm Amazed to the studio recording of it. And I know a lot of people out there will say that the 1976 Wings Over America live version is the best version of Maybe I'm Amazed. But I disagree. I think this version's better, personally. But yeah, I love the outro of this as well, the way Paul sings the title. Maybe I'm amazed, maybe I'm amazed, yeah, maybe I'm amazed. Sorry. Yeah, I love it when he does that. That's one of the things I prefer about the live versions of this song. It always just goes better than what the the studio recording does. The studio recording always feels like it ends too soon. It finishes too early. So that's one of the things I've always preferred about the live versions of this song. Basically, why on earth was this not released in 1974? I mean, imagine recording something this good and then thinking, nah, I'm not going to release that. It's bizarre. Right, the next track we have My Love. This was obviously on Red Rose Speedway. As far as I'm aware, this performance has previously been unreleased. I think it's in the One Hand Clapping film, but the audio on its own has not been released before this. So I've got to be honest, controversial opinion here. I know I've never massively cared for My Love. It's never been one of my favourite songs. In fact, of everything on Red Rose Speedway, this is probably one of my least favourite tracks. I can fully appreciate it's a McCartney classic, but there's just something about it that just makes me think, not special really. However, this performance here, it is brilliant by Wings. I've got to say, the performance here, it's not really that different from the studio recording. It doesn't really sound that different, which is, you know, it's a thing, I suppose. Jimmy obviously has to play the guitar solo now that Henry's left the band. Henry was a brilliant guitarist, especially when he wrote this solo. Jimmy kind of sounds a little nervous playing this one. It's maybe just me interpreting this wrong, mishearing it, but he doesn't kind of hit all the notes bang on like Henry did. He would be fine by the time he got to Wings Over America. This would obviously be the first time Jimmy played this. But yeah, there's just something a little off, it seems, with Jimmy's guitar solo on here, which is a shame. But I mean, it's not bad. It's just it doesn't quite hit the same way, in my honest opinion. The pollen must be very high today. I'm regretting not taking my hay fever tablet. It's kind of playing on my throat a bit and my eyes are going a bit watery. So yeah, do forgive me. I should probably go and take it. But I'm a professional. I'm not going to stop. I'm in a roll now. Right, we're on to side 2 now. Flip the record over. We're starting off with Bluebird, track number 7. Obviously Bluebird is from Band on the Run. This version of Bluebird, this performance, it was previously released on the 2010 Band on the Run Archive Edition. I love Bluebird. It is potentially the most underrated track. No, it isn't. 1985 is. But Bluebird is one of the more underrated tracks on Band on the Run. Yeah, I love the song, and this performance is brilliant. I actually, in some ways, prefer this performance to the Band on the Run version. Again, that'll be a controversial opinion, but I just do, basically. The chorus on this song, it's to die for. The harmonies, oh, Bluebird, Bluebird, aha. Imagine if I could sing, I'd be acing this. Yeah, the chorus on here, when this will be the first time Wings ever play it live, It's brilliant. It really just goes. It's so heavenly. Same later in the song when the 3-point harmonies come in from Paul, Linda and Denny. It's heavenly. Their voices, brilliant. It's got some nice little reggae guitar on this version. The ding, 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 ding. Anyway, that's a terrible impression of it. Yeah, it's electric guitar. I don't know if it's Denny playing it or Jimmy McCulloch playing it. I'm going to say it's Denny. I might be wrong on that, but I'm going to say it's Denny. Which is nice, because obviously on the live version on Wings Over America, it's played acoustically like the record, but on here it's played more on electric guitars, which is very nice. Paul's voice, it's just the best. His voice, he's got a voice to die for, hasn't he? He's brilliant. Howie Casey is here playing his sax solo. It's as great as it is on the record. He hits every single note. Yeah, Bluebird, brilliant song. Bloody love Bluebird. Bloody good song, innit? Bloody good. Right, next we've got track 8, Let's Love. Let's Love. This is one of the more interesting ones, because this song, it was originally written by Paul, but it was recorded and released originally by Penny Love. I don't know why I said originally written by Paul. It was obviously written by Paul. It couldn't be originally written by someone. Anyway, like I say, Peggy Love did this song originally. As far as I'm aware, this performance here has been previously unreleased. I think it's maybe in the film, don't quote me on that. It's years since I've seen the film, I can't quite remember everything that's in it. But I think this is. The demo recording of this was released on the Venus and Mars archive edition, but the performance on here has never been released before now. This starts as sort of number of tracks on the one hand clapping that are all solo. Piano performances from Paul, so the next few tracks, they're all just Paul. The next 3 tracks are just Paul on his own at the piano. It's got a nice little performance, this. Paul does a very good job, but it's only a minute long, literally just a minute. So there's not really much to say here, but it's decent enough. Right, next track, track 9, All of You. As far as I'm aware, this is an unreleased Paul song. It's written by Paul, but then it's never been released. He's never given it away to anyone or anything like that. So that makes this one quite interesting, because it's effectively, in some ways, it's a new Paul song. A new Paul song. See, that's what's great about this album not being officially released before. We're getting new stuff, technically, here. Anyway, this is a previously unreleased performance, although, come to think of it, I think it's in the film, the one hand clapping film. So in which case, it's not previously technically unreleased. People will have heard it before. There we go. Anyway, as far as I know, this hasn't been ever released or performed live by Paul, except on here. I've just said that. It's a nice little solo piano song. The melody on this, I've wrote here, it kind of reminds me of Single Pigeon from Red Rose Speedway. Love Single Pigeon. It's one of my favourite tracks on that album. And some part of me wishes that we had Single Pigeon live here in place of All of You. But yeah, the melody anyway, it's similar-ish. I'm not entirely sure why he's never done anything with this song, or at least given it away to someone else to record. Because it's not a bad song, it's nothing special. It's not the sort of thing you put out as your lead single off an album, as your A-side. Be a decent enough B-side for Paul, but if he gave it away, I'm sure someone would be being very happy with this song. Anyway, next track, track 10, I'll Give You a Ring. So this song, it was originally released by Paul as the B-side to Take It Away in 1982, but it was written in around 1973, 1974. This performance was unreleased as far as I'm aware. It's probably in the one hand clapping film, but the audio is definitely unreleased. Yeah, another solo piano song. I love the way that he sings this song. It's a decent song. What is it I'm saying? Oh yeah, the bit I love is when he sings the intro. You look as so lonely. I love the way he sings that. The stuff about taking you to the pictures and all of that stuff. It's just a fun Paul song, really. Not a lot to say about it. I'll give you a ring. Oh, rings on you, man. Sort of thing. Anyway, get serious, Oliver. Track 11, Band on the Run. Believe it or not, Band on the Run was originally from the album Band on the Run. This performance, it has previously obviously been released. It was on the 2010 Band on the Run archive edition. Interestingly, if you go on Apple Music and you listen to the playlist, I think it's 70s hits or whatever it's called. It's basically a compilation playlist of all the best songs from the 70s. The version of Band on the Run that appears on that playlist is the one-hand clapping version rather than the studio recording version. I think that's probably on there by accident. They're probably intended for the studio recording, but anyway. As with the other Band on the Run tracks, if you want to hear the one-hand clapping version of this, it sounds a lot better on here than it does on the archive edition. It just sounds better remastered, remixed, etc. Yeah, I bloody love this performance. We have Wings once again. They're all on this track. Obviously, it's not a solo Paul song, this one. They are firing on all cylinders. Play this song loud. It's in your face. It's rock and roll. It's brilliant. Linda as well. She obviously when she started in Wings as a keyboard player, she didn't know how to play the keys. And it's not really been that long. I mean, Wings started, was it back end of 71, whatever? Here we have middle of 74. And her keys are kind of driving this song. It's incredible. Yeah. It's just really good stuff from Linda. It's incredible to see how far she has come as a keyboard player. Again, like I've said a few times, in some ways I prefer this version of Band on the Run to the studio recording of it. And I know for a fact that will be a controversial opinion, because there'll be a lot of people out there who will die by their sword on Band on the Run being Paul McCartney's best song, stuff like that, or best solo song, best Wings song. But I think this live version on one hand clapping is better than the studio recording of it. Sorry, it's my opinion. What else have I got to say? This here is the sound of Wings entering their absolute peak. They've just released Band on the Run. They're about to start work on Venus and Mars and go on their hugely successful Wings Over the World tour. Alright, Speed of Sound would also be recorded. I don't think that's a great album personally, but a lot of people will say it is. It did have some big hit singles on. This was Wings at their peak anyway. And this is the start of it. This is where they're really starting to get into their stride. It's brilliant stuff. Yeah, if you don't like the song Band on the Run, I don't know what you're doing watching this video and how you've got this far into it, but there must be something very wrong with you, because it's an incredible piece of music, Band on the Run. It's Paul doing what he does best. It's Beatle level of good, Band on the Run. Yeah, this performance, Wings, every member playing at their absolute best. Right, track 12, Live and Let Die. So, this one was originally a non-album single, and obviously it was a James Bond theme for the film of the same title. So this performance here, I think, don't quote me on this, I think this performance of Live and Let Die has previously been released on some film soundtrack. I don't know what it is. I think it was in the early noughties, 2001, 2002, 2003. One of them years rings a bell. There was a film soundtrack come out, and for some reason the one-hand clapping performance of Live and Let Die was on it. And that's the only time this version, the audio of it, has been released officially. Otherwise, it's never been officially released on any Paul albums, any Paul re-release, archive edition stuff. Interestingly, it wasn't on the Red Rose Speedway archive edition, this one. But anyway, I think it will be in the film, this performance, but the audio, like I say, has never been officially released. I love this performance. Once again, we have Wings firing on all cylinders here. This is proper in-your-face rock and roll. Play it loud. You know, there will be idiots out there who will claim that Guns N' Roses did this song better. They didn't. They just didn't. They, in some ways, butchered it. This version, this is the best Live and Let Die sounds. Again, controversially, I think this is better than the studio recording of it. The film, the actual version recorded for the film Live and Let Die. But yeah, what's also very nice about this performance is it has a full orchestra playing with them. Obviously, whenever they do this live, to this day, whenever Paul has done it live, he's never really done it live with an orchestra. Wings would never do it live with an orchestra. They would have to either use keyboards or a brass section. But here we have them one and only time it's done live with an orchestra, and for that alone, mwah. I mean, it's incredible that an orchestra is playing live with Wings playing live on this song. It's incredible. Yes, calm myself. Paul's vocals here, they are top notch, which is to be expected really at this point. Like I said, this is my favourite version of Live and Let Die. You used to say live and let live. Right, next track 13, 1985. This was originally on Band on the Run, the closing track on Band on the Run. And this version from this performance was also on the 2010 archive edition of Band on the Run. So, this is quite an interesting performance, this, because it starts off as a solo Paul piano performance, and it's very nice. It's very, very nice, Paul playing this on his own at the piano. Yeah, like I say, this is one of my favourite Wings songs. This is also the only time they ever played this song live, that for some reason, despite this being one of the very best Wings songs, they never did it live. Why? I don't know. But yeah, here we finally have them doing it live, and they ruin it. Because we have Paul starting off as a solo piano thing, and then about 2 minutes into the song, it cuts to the studio recording, the album recording of it, with Paul singing a new live vocal on top of it. And why? Why? Why are Wings not playing this live? Why have we now suddenly cut to the album version of it with a new live vocal from Paul? What's the point in that? I mean, they've not done that with any other track on this album. Why have they done this? Why is this not a live performance? I mean, I might be wrong here. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Wings are playing it live. And if they are playing it live, well, good God, they've managed to make it sound exactly like the record. Like, to a note, it is note perfect to the record. So, do correct me if I'm wrong here, but why? Why is this not a proper live performance like the rest of it? Arguably, this should be, it should be the best song on the album, this one. The best song on the entire one-hand clapping concert. And they're effectively cheating. Why? I mean, I'd rather it just stayed as a solo Paul piano performance. At least that would have been interesting. I don't want to hear just Paul singing a new vocal on top of the studio recording. So, yeah, it's disappointing. Why? Does anyone know why? Does anyone actually know why he did this? Is there a reason for it? I mean, they had an orchestra in the studio with them. They could have done this live. It's irritating. Yeah, disappointing. It's the only disappointing thing on this album, I would say, personally. But we knew that was coming because obviously we'd had this previously released. Yeah, it's a shame. Right, track 14, we have Babyface. So this is the first cover song that you can hear on the album, and it was originally written all the way back in 1926. This performance by Wings, it was previously released on the 2014 Venus and Mars Archive edition. I love with this song the way it kind of starts off as Paul playing the piano on his own, so it's a solo Paul song on the piano, and then he sort of cuts off because he says he's got the chords wrong, which I like that. One of the things I like about this album is they've left all the studio chatter in. That's something I should have said with the archive edition releases of these songs. The studio chatter, for the most part, has been released. Well, thankfully on here it's all been left in. Anyway, once Paul's got the chords right, he comes back in, we have the brass join in, and wow, it's glorious. It sounds like a proper New Orleans jazz, Mardi Gras sort of thing. Very Venus and Mars sound, and obviously Venus and Mars will be recorded a few months later. Wings would go to New Orleans not long after recording this. So yeah, it's a nice little taste of what was to come, I suppose. Paul's doing an absolutely brilliant job here. I'm not sure, actually. I think Paul is the only Wings member who's on this song. I think it's Paul on his own at the piano with a brass band accompany him? I can't say it. Joining him. Yeah, it's decent enough. Yeah, it's a nice little tune, Babyface. I like it. Right, that's the end of disc 1, I think, is it? Yes, disc 1 is finished, so we're moving on now to disc number 2. We are starting here with Let Me Roll It, track 15. Obviously, this was originally on Band on the Run, and as with all the Band on the Run tracks, it would seem, this version was previously released, this performance was previously released on the 2010 Archive edition. This is another fabulous performance from Wings, but controversially, and I know this is controversial, I don't really care for Let Me Roll It. It's potentially one of the most overrated Paul McCartney songs, and that's not something I say lightly. You know, I don't know. I can't come here and say this is a bad song. I can't come here and say this is a bad performance, because this is not a bad performance. It's a really good one. I just think the song itself is overrated. I think it's one of them songs I've heard it too much. If I never hear this song again, that's fine by me. I've heard it far too much over the years. But in terms of this performance, Paul's vocals, they are fabulous. The riff, the ding-a-ling-ding-ding-ding, I'm guessing, I think it's Denny playing it, but it could be Jimmy. But Paul is definitely on the bass on this one, because, you know, the bass line, it's just very melodic, it's very Paul McCartney. Plus, we know from the Rockestra film, from the Wings Over America tour, Wings Over the World tour, that Paul did play bass on this song, so he'll be playing bass on this. Plus, according to the creepy poster with the personnel on, I mean, look, Paul is the only one who plays bass, apparently, so, yeah, there we go. Right, moving on, next track, track 16, Blue Moon of Kentucky. I love this song, I love it. So this song, it was originally by Bill Monroe, but it was made more famous by Elvis in the 1950s. This performance was previously unreleased, and why? It's brilliant. I love this performance. I love whenever Wings or whenever Paul covers this song. We have had it released before, covers of this. There was a Wings version of it on the Wings Over Europe album that came out in 2018, and there's a Paul solo performance of it on the Unplugged album from 1991, I think. But this is probably my favourite version of it. It's brilliant. Just Wings are going so hard on this song. Denny is just giving it his all on the harmonica. One of the things I love as well is in the intro where Paul just says, you give me funny faces, Jeff, but Blue Moon, and just starts singing. It's the way he goes from like singing like with such power in his voice, with such passion, then he just starts speaking and he just goes straight back into singing as if it's no effort at all required. It's brilliant. And I love as well here how Wings, they do kind of both the original Bill Monroe version and the Elvis version. It's predominantly the Elvis version, but the intro, I would say, is more the Bill Monroe version. Very nice stuff. Yeah, this song, this performance, it makes me happy. It makes me really happy, this performance. In fact, whenever Paul does this song, it makes me happy. There's just something about this song that makes me very happy. Yeah, I love it. Blue Moon of Kentucky, shine on the one that's gone and left me blue. Blue Moon of Kentucky, folks. Some nice guitar as well from Jimmy McCulloch on here. Yeah, nice stuff. Good stuff. Very good. Right, track 17, we got Power Cut. Power Cut. I love that. Right, firstly, this was originally on Red Rose Speedway as part of the medley at the end of the album. In fact, it was the very last thing on the medley. This performance was previously unreleased. This is the one and only time that Power Cut has ever been played live by Paul. And I love it. I love it when he does stuff like this, deep cuts like this live. This is one of the things I love about One Hand Clapping. We are getting stuff like this included. You know, Hey Jude, that can bugger off, all that overplayed stuff. Paul, do stuff like this live, please, while you're still here. Give us stuff like this. Get Hey Jude and all of that out the set. Get this in instead. Anyway, this version is a solo Paul performance. He plays it on the organ, actually. I absolutely love as well how he does a jokey dedication at the start of it to, I can't remember, someone who lives in Edinburgh. It's obviously a joke, he's not being serious, but he also plays it in a kind of a reggae way. It's not like a full performance from the version on Red Rose Speedway. It's only about a minute long, this performance, but it's still like the basis of the song is there. You know, its DNA is there. You know, it's Power Cut, and it's kind of like a reggae song. It works very nicely. Short and sweet. The actual performance will only be about a minute long, and again, I wrote here, why was this album not released at the time when it's this bloody good? I mean, maybe we'd have got a better cover if it got released at the time. Hopefully they'd have included a picture of the band rather than that creepy thing, but that's a story for another day. Right, track 18, Love My Baby. This is an unreleased Paul Penn song. However, this performance, it was previously released as a free download on Paul's website in November 2014. God knows why. I think it was to promote the Venus and Mars Archive edition. Don't know why they didn't just stick it on there. But anyway, this song, it's kind of a bit of a lullaby in terms of its melody. It's kind of like a light sort of lullaby thing. It's a solo Paul performance, this one. Short and sweet. It's got a nice wee medley to it, a melody to it, but it's not special. Right, track 19, Let It Be. Guess what? You've probably heard of this one. It was originally a Beatles song. This performance is previously been unreleased. This is the first time that Paul ever played this song live post-Beatles, and don't get your hopes up if you're really excited for this, because it's not a serious performance. It's not a full band performance anyway, it's just Paul on his own. The best way to describe it, I think what's happening here, if you've seen the Get Back documentary, there is quite often Paul will be sat at a piano on his own and he'll just start playing away random things like songs of his from the past or stuff like during one of the Twickenham sessions, he starts playing Another Day at the piano randomly. Stuff like that. I think it's like that basically. He's doing that with Let It Be effectively. He's not intending for it to be a proper performance, he's just sort of warming up, I suppose. Although he doesn't actually play this on the piano, he plays it on the harmonium, which is very interesting because, you know, this is about probably the only time Paul has played this song live and it not be on a piano. Yeah, I'd love to hear a full harmonium version of Let It Be. That'd be very interesting. The harmonium as well. I think that's what's on what John plays on We Can Work It Out. So I wonder if this is the same harmonium that Paul is playing here as what John played on We Can Work It Out. Anyway, there's not really all that much to say about this performance because it's only about a minute long. Yeah, it's nice to hear Paul play the harmonium. It's nice to hear him play Let It Be because obviously this was the first time he did it post-Beatles, so it's the closest in terms of his voice and all that stuff to when he originally recorded it. So yeah, very nice. Right after that, track 20, we have another medley of Beatles songs. We have The Long and Winding Road and Lady Madonna. So originally both these were Beatles songs and this performance is previously unreleased. Paul has switched to the piano again, and once again this is a solo Paul performance. It's not a full band thing. Once again, like I said with Let It Be, I think this is kind of like with the Get Back documentary where Paul is just sort of minding himself, just waiting for the others, just playing away on the piano. I think it's one of them basically. However, Paul does an excellent job on both these. Long and Winding Road, it's a long and winding road without all the Phil Spector's crap, so that's a win-win. Would have been interesting if this had been released at the time actually, because this would have been the first time it'd be released without Phil Spector's rubbish on it. I also love on this version the way that Paul, he's sort of playing the Long and Winding Road and he kind of just gives up and then he suddenly just starts playing Lady Madonna, and yeah, I think that's brilliant. It's a nice little flow between the tracks which you wouldn't normally expect to work because they're two very different songs, Long and Winding Road and Lady Madonna, and yet Paul makes it work here. I'm impressed as well. He remembers all the lyrics pretty well, and you know, like the chords for Lady Madonna. Lady Madonna, I imagine, is a very hard song to play, and he's just sort of doing it with ease and still remembers all the words, despite the fact he's not touched any of these songs for years by this point. But yeah, neither of these performances are that serious. Yeah, in terms of on the standard full album, that's it for Beatles songs, and none of them are serious performances, which doesn't bother me, to be honest, because I mean I could live without these being on the album. It's nice to have them, but there we go. Right, we're on to side 4 now, the final side of the album, and potentially the most interesting side of all. We start off with Junior's Farm. So this was originally a non-album single, and it was recorded not long before One Hand Clapping, actually. When they recorded this, I don't think Junior's Farm had been released yet. So yeah, that's interesting. This performance of Junior's Farm, it was previously unreleased. God knows why it wasn't on the Venus and Mars Archive edition, but it wasn't. This version, it rocks proper hard. We've got Wings really going for it. I bloody love this song, just play it loud. It is one of the best Wings songs. And yeah, in my opinion, this performance is the best version of Junior's Farm. I think it's better than the single version, than the studio recording of it. If I want to listen to Junior's Farm, this is where I will go. And guess what? He sings the full thing. Yes, he sings the second verse at the Houses of Parliament. Everybody's talking about the president. He doesn't sing that bloody appallingly crap edited version that he always does live now. I think even in most of the 70s he did the stupid edited version of it. Here we get the full version with the bag of cement for the president and Ollie Hardy jumping the fence. Yeah, it's great. That's another reason to love it. This is probably, it might be the only live performance of Wings doing this song, or Paul in general doing this song, where he actually sings the full thing. Woohoo! Yeah, we've got Wings firing on all cylinders here. This is rock and roll at its absolute best. I love this song. It's bloody brilliant, basically. Right, track 22, we have Sally G. This was originally the B-side of Junior's Farm, which was recorded not long before this. So obviously at the time when this was recorded, Sally G had not been released, nor had Junior's Farm, but it was impending. This performance has been previously unreleased. And why? Why? So, this performance is my favourite thing on the entire One Hand Clapping album, and I wasn't expecting Sally G to turn out to be my favourite. This is a solo Paul performance. He's playing this on his own on an acoustic guitar, and it's brilliant. There is something incredibly powerful about Paul playing on his own on an acoustic guitar. We don't get that all that often from Paul, especially in this period of his career. And it's brilliant. I mean, it just makes me so happy. I love the studio version of Sally G. I always have. It's always been, in my opinion, one of the more underrated Wings tracks. But this performance is so much better. There's just something about it. I love it. I mean, since this came out yesterday, I have not stopped listening to this performance of Sally G. Yeah, it's brilliant. I love it, man. Woohoo! This is the one and only time as well that Sally G was ever played live. And why? It's a brilliant song, especially like this. I mean, why? Why? Paul, play it live, man. Play it live and play it like this. I mean, what a talent he is. What a talent Mr. McCartney is. Why on earth, why has this been left in the vault for the last 50 years? What's interesting is, I don't know if, while Paul's playing this acoustic version, if he has the backing track playing, that he's playing along to through headphones or something, because if you listen to this version through headphones, especially on the Atmos mix, especially when he sings the line, I used to love to hear that sweet guitar, yeah, that's the line, you can very, very faintly hear in the background the actual guitar from the record, the doo-doo-doo, that, you can very faintly hear it. I don't know if that was originally intended to go on, and they obviously decided to change it, or if it's Paul listening in headphones to play along on the acoustic guitar. I think it's probably that, but it just sort of is picked up by Paul's microphone. It's quite interesting stuff. But yeah, Sally G, very interesting stuff. Highlight of the entire collection for me, this entire album. Yeah, if there's one thing you listen to of this album, listen to this. It is brilliant. It's Paul at his absolute best. Oh, my eyes are getting more and more watery. My throat's getting even more thing. Bloody hay fever, man. Right, track 23, Tomorrow. This was originally released on Wildlife. This performance has been previously unreleased. So, I am on record here on YouTube for saying that if you go and watch my video or my review of Wildlife, which was back in 2020, I think. Remember 2020? That was a fun year. I said in that of all the songs that Paul McCartney has ever played live, ever recorded, Tomorrow is the most underrated of the lot. Paul has said in recent years quite a few times that he thinks if he could record any of his songs again, he would do Waterfalls off McCartney 2, because he doesn't think he did a great job of that. He thinks he could have done it better. Tomorrow is the one that he should be saying. Of all the songs that he has ever done, this is the one that he has wasted. If he had done this properly, rather than do it on Wildlife, this would be a McCartney classic. I can guarantee you he would still be playing this in concerts to this day, especially if it had the Beatles name to it. It's a bloody brilliant song, but because it's on Wildlife and the way he recorded that album, it's kind of half-arsed, so it doesn't get to be its full potential. And I'm not the only person who thinks he should have redone this song. Linda's dad also thought he should redo this song, and he never did. He never bloody did. He still hasn't. Maybe, well, it's maybe too late for him to do it properly now, but yeah, anyway, when this was announced, obviously I hadn't heard the bootleg, so I seen Tomorrow on the track list. I was like, here we go, because this is the one and only time Tomorrow has ever been played live as well. Here we go, this is going to be interesting. We might finally get the thing that I'm wanting, Tomorrow, done properly, and it's a solo Paul piano thing that's half-arsed, like Let It Be and Long and Winding Road and all that stuff. Yeah, I kind of found this a bit disappointing. I think it's because I built it up in my head to be so much more. I was expecting this to be like a proper full-on band performance of Tomorrow, and it's not. It's just Paul on his own at the piano. It's a decent enough performance as well. It's a better performance than stuff like Let It Be and Long and Winding Road. But again, it's like, it's still screaming potential. It's potential, and it's, you know, just imagine if he'd done this properly here with Jimmy McCulloch playing the guitar and stuff like that on it. It'd have been brilliant. I mean, the potential for this song has now gone to waste on both Wildlife and now One Hand Clapping. It's like, he's not done it once now, he's done it twice. Cocked this song up. I mean, part of me now thinks maybe it's a good thing he's not tried to re-record it, because it'd be a third time he'd get it wrong. But, you know, it's just, it really annoys me, this, because it's got so much potential, this song, and it just always seems to go to waste. This is the only time it was ever played live. But yeah, that's Tomorrow. Right, track 24, Go Now. This was originally by Bessie Banks, but the most famous version of it was by the Moody Blues, which Denny Laine originally sang. So this performance was previously unreleased. Basically, this is standard Go Now. There's plenty of versions out there of Denny Laine singing this. This is no different really to the version on Wings Over America live album, on the Wings Over Europe live album. If we ever get the Glasgow gig, it's no different to the version on that either. It's standard Go Now. Denny Laine is doing a perfectly fine job singing this one. Very good vocalist. He's a big miss, actually. Really underrated talent. But yeah, this performance here, it's definitely better, I think, than the original Moody Blues version of it. But there's plenty of versions from Wings of this song out there. You're not really getting anything new with this one, in my opinion. Right, track 25, Wildlife. This was originally released on the album Wildlife. It was the title track. This performance, however, was previously unreleased. Now, what's interesting here is the intro of the song. The words wild apply to the words you and me. Denny Laine sings that on here rather than Paul, which is really interesting. At first, when I heard this, I thought, is Denny going to sing this song instead? Which would have been very interesting, but no. It's Paul for the most part, but Denny does get to sing the intro, which is quite interesting. Again, as I mentioned with Band on the Run, Linda's keyboard playing. This is the song that Paul often talks about, where when they first started off with Wings, Linda forgot the keys, and then Paul also forgot the keys whilst they were on stage. And yet by this point, she's acing it. She's doing it no problem at all. She's come so far. It's nice to see her growth, her character development. Yeah, anyway, in terms of the vocals on this performance, this is some of Paul's very best. He always sings this song so well. Jimmy McCulloch's guitar on here is fabulous. Some of the licks that he plays are on another level. It's a shame this is the last time Wings ever played this live. A lot of the stuff on here, the pre-Band on the Run stuff, this is the only time that this lineup of Wings would ever do it. By the time they went on tour properly, Venus and Mars was out, so that took up a lot of the set list along with Band on the Run. So this is the only time that Jimmy and Jeff, more so Jimmy, because he was in the band longer, got to play on some of that earlier stuff, which in itself makes it interesting. It's the only time we ever get to hear Jimmy playing on Wildlife. It's a shame that when Wings did later tours, they didn't do it like more covering their entire career rather than just the commercial peak. Yeah, but Wildlife here, decent performance. Yeah, it's decent. It's decent enough. Track 26, High, High, High. This is the closing track here on the standard albums. You'll be pleased to hear I'm nearly finished rambling on. So this was originally a non-album single. This performance here is previously unreleased. Wings, they're going very hard in this performance. They're going very loud, play this song loud. Rock and roll music at its best. Again, I think I prefer this performance to the single version of it, but I've never massively cared for this song to begin with. I don't think it's that special a song, to be honest. So, yeah, I mean, maybe it's just I'm fed up of hearing it. I've maybe heard it enough, like, let me roll it, but it's decent enough, I suppose. This performance is good, though, and a nice way to close the album with a bit of rock and roll. So, that's it. That is the standard album finished. However, we also have these 6 tracks here on the EP. I think I'll put it that way around. If that's still standing in the next 5 minutes, I won't give you anything, but you can thing. Anyway, right, we have 6 tracks on here. So this EP, all these 6 tracks is Paul on his own with an acoustic guitar. This was recorded on the 30th of August 1974 in the backyard of Abbey Road. Basically, Paul went out in the garden and sat with an acoustic guitar and played 6 songs. And the 6 songs are as follows. Blackpool is the first one. Now, Blackpool, people are thinking, what the hell is Blackpool? Blackpool, it is an unreleased Paul song. Interestingly, when this one-hand clapping thing got announced, this was probably the song that NPL were hyping up the most. Blackpool is getting released, everybody, except you have to get it on the EP, but never mind. So originally, this song, it was originally supposed to be released as the B-side to The Man in 1984, but the single went unreleased, so therefore, so did this song. I mean, it isn't, I've not reviewed Pipes a Piece, but isn't it a shame that The Man didn't get released as a single? I mean, it'd have been a real shame that we've all missed out on such a potentially brilliant single there. Anyway, Blackpool. This performance of it, it's previously unreleased. I think Paul did play it live on the Chaos and Creation in Abbey Road documentary thing in 2005. So if you want to see it played live, you could have seen it there. But this is a better performance of it because Paul is younger here. His voice is younger. Anyway, it's a nice little acoustic ditty. I love the way Paul sings it. Would have been a very nice B-side. It's got rather nice bridge on it. But overall, I mean, it's only about 1.5 minutes long. It's nothing spectacular. I mean, it's not like a absolute masterpiece has been found in the vaults. It's a nice enough song. Right, track number 28, we have Howard Fix Your Camera, also known as Blackbird. Originally, this was a Beatles song. This performance was previously unreleased. If you don't know why I'm calling it Howard Fix Your Camera, listen to it on this single. Well, you'll have to buy the EP. You'll have to fork out and buy it, you tight buggers, you. But if you do that, you'll find out why I'm calling it Howard Fix Your Camera. This is the only Beatles tune on the entire one hand clapping thing that is a serious performance. It's a full-on thing, and it's Blackbird. It's just Blackbird. It's a lovely performance. It's the first time I think Paul did it post Beatles. I think it's maybe on the James Paul McCartney TV special thing. But it's the first proper live performance he did of it, and it's not really that different from the original record, to be honest. It's a nice performance. He does a good job here. So yeah, Howard Fix Your Camera. It's a very nice performance here. Right, track 29, Country Dreamer. This was originally the B-side to Helen Wheels. This performance, it was previously released on the 2010 Band on the Run Archive edition. Yeah, I love the way Paul at the start of this, he keeps forgetting the lyrics, and then he even comments on it saying that if he can remember I think, what is it he says? It's Country Dreamer if I can remember the lyrics. Yeah, it's quite amusing the way he says that. Oh heavens, somebody's trying to phone me. I'm trying to record a video, you baggers, yeah. To be popular. Right, it's a nice little performance of Country Dreamer, this. It's, you know, Paul is brilliant at this type of song. Not much to say about it. I actually think of the EP, the other side, these next three tracks we're going to talk about is the more interesting one. This is Paul's medley of rock and roll songs, 1950s rock and roll songs. So first up, track number 30, 20 Flight Rock, originally by Eddie Cochran. This performance, previously unreleased. It's always an absolute treat to hear Paul play this song, because obviously this was the song that Paul played when he first met John Lennon. This was the song that got Paul into the Quarrymen, and it's just a treat to hear Paul play it live. Yeah, it's a splendid performance. You can always feel when Paul plays this, he loves it. He loves playing this. And it works surprisingly well as an acoustic song. Yeah, this performance is actually one of my favourites on the entire One Hand Clapping album. As is the next song, Peggy Sue. This was originally by Buddy Holly. This performance was previously unreleased. Paul is doing a brilliant job of his doing a Buddy Holly impression on this. Peggy Sue. No, you didn't see that. Yeah, so you can tell on this performance, Paul is in his absolute element playing some 1950s rock and roll tunes. He's a teenager again. I mean, by this point, he's a 30-year-old man, a married man with... How old will he be? He's a 32-year-old married man with kids. He's a family man. He's a grown-up. But when he does this, he gets to be 15 again. And you can see that he loves doing it. Yeah, it's brilliant. This is one of the highlights of the One Hand Clapping album. It's a shame that these haven't gone on the regular album, or at least put digitally onto streaming. I think they should. I think MPL have made a mistake there, personally. And then finally, track 32, I'm Gonna Love You. Originally by Buddy Holly, this performance again previously unreleased. Once again, Paul is doing his Buddy Holly sort of voice impression thingy. Basically the same thing as Peggy Sue. You can feel Paul is in his element here. Yeah, he's a teenager again. It's a brilliant performance. It's I'm Gonna Love You. It's more of a short song, this one. It's a lot more short and sweet, but yeah, it's a nice way to close the album. And that's it. That, ladies and gentlemen, is One Hand Clapping. Thank you if you've made it all the way through this video, because I know it's been a long one. But I'm very pleased to have this. I think it's a brilliant release, even if it's got a creepy cover. Yeah, I just think it's nice to finally have this album released and out in the wild at long last. Like I say, most of the tracks on here, they will probably be my go-to versions for these songs. I mean, most of the Band on the Run tracks, Sally G, Junior's Farm. Yeah, plenty of stuff. 20 Flight Rock, Peggy Sue. There's some brilliant stuff on here, except please stick this EP onto streaming as well so I can listen to it in my headphones. So, yes, let me know. Do you like One Hand Clapping? Have you bought it? Are you enjoying it? Anyway, I think that's all I've got to say for now. I'm off for a lie down after this video, and I'm off to take my hay fever tablet. Until next time, though, and we'll meet again next time, I hope. Do take care. I'm ever the professional with this.